Breaking news. I wanted to share this social media post from Fox News stating that a U.S. fighter jet shoots down unmanned Iranian drone that was approaching USS Abraham Lincoln in Arabian Sea, U.S. Central Command spokesman says.
EO-211 local, Arabian Sea, T-minus 90 seconds until impact. 16 missiles. 4,900 souls in the crosshairs. Every second counts. This is the story of 37 minutes that rewired deterrence overnight. The moonlight is weak, but the ship isn't. USS Abraham Lincoln, CVN-72, moves like a city that learned to float. Blacked out where it can be, glowing red where it must be. The air smells like JP5 and hot steel. The deck crews are mid-routine, chocks, chains, hand signals, catwalk shadows, calm competence, and then the calm fractures. Tracks, multiple, bearing 300, high speed. Not a drill voice, not an exercise cadence, the real one. The one that tightens your throat before your brain finishes translating. Imagine you're here, standing on the edge of the angled deck, looking into darkness you can't own. You can't see the missiles, but you can feel the ship's posture change, like an animal realizing the brush is moving wrong. Because somewhere beyond the horizon, Iranian fire control radars have just done something that is half physics, half message. They've locked. The Lincoln is a Nimitz-class carrier, built for endurance, built for air power, and, when necessary, built to survive long enough for the rest of the fleet to do its work. It carries layered self-defense systems, Sea Sparrow, ESSM-class point defense, rolling airframe missiles, Phalanx CIWS, because even a supercarrier doesn't pretend it's invincible. It just refuses to be an easy math problem. Tonight, it's not alone. An escort screen, Aegis destroyers and cruisers runs wide arcs around the carrier, their radars sweeping, their vertical launch cells full of options. That matters here, because this water isn't just water. This is the approach to the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most famous maritime choke point, where strategy gets measured in shipping lanes and political nerve. Now, from the enemy's view. In Tehran, the decision isn't purely military. It's political pressure turned into a firing solution, an answer demanded by hardliners, headlines, and the belief that the U.S. Navy can be forced to blink. They don't need to sink a carrier. They only need to prove it can be threatened. A lock becomes propaganda even if nothing hits. So they build the plan like a chess problem. Force a reaction, create a dilemma, punish whichever move looks slow. Wave 1. 12 anti-ship cruise missiles. Sea-skimming, terrain-hugging, designed to arrive low enough to blend with clutter. Wave 2. 4 anti-ship ballistic missiles. Faster, higher, forcing defenders to split attention between altitude bands. Total, 16 shots. Their logic is clean and cold. Saturate the air picture, compress the timeline, and exploit the human limit. They believe the U.S. response will be cautious. They believe rules of engagement will hesitate. They believe a carrier strike group, worried about escalation, will let seconds slip. They also believe their anti-ship missile inventory, Noor, Gator, Ghadir-class concepts, and the broader coastal missile threat creates a denial umbrella that even a U.S. carrier must respect. That belief has been cultivated for years. But they overlook something. Here's what they got wrong. They treated the carrier as the center of the fight. In reality, the center of the fight is time. Who sees first, who decides first, who shoots first, and who keeps the picture coherent when the sky fills with lies. And Aegis was built for that. On the Escort's SPY-1 radar, the ocean is not empty. It's a moving grid of returns, tracks, and probabilities. The Aegis weapon system was designed to search, track, and guide simultaneously, with a track capacity described by the U.S. Navy as more than 100 targets. This is not one ship watching one thing. This is a network deciding what matters. 0.3 seconds. That's all it takes for the first classification to harden. At ORG 21206, an E-2D Hawkeye, already airborne, pushes refined tracks across the network. At ERO 2.1214, a destroyer's Aegis console auto-assigns engagement zones, building a layered plan in machine time while humans confirm intent. At ER2.12.21, the strike group commander's voice hits the net, controlled and absolute. Weapons free, defend the force. Could you make that call? In a region where one intercept can become tomorrow's crisis meeting, could you still choose speed? Because speed is the only mercy in missile defense. At 02-1240, the first ballistic tracks rise in the upper picture. Hot, fast, and unmistakable. They're not aimed at the escorts. They're aimed through them. The escorts move first, not physically, but electronically. Sensors cue. Data links stitch. The air picture becomes a single shared truth. The Hawkeye holds the crown, seeing beyond the radar horizon, organizing chaos into geometry. Then the outer ring fires. A standard missile punches upward, white plume, brutal acceleration, vanishing into the night like a flare that refuses to fall. The interceptor doesn't chase, it predicts. It intercepts a future point in space, a flash far above the ocean. Splash 1, another launch. Splash 2, you don't cheer. Not yet, because the ballistic threats were the distraction, and the sea skimmers are the knife. At 02.1330, the first cruise missiles drop low enough that they almost disappear into the ocean's curvature. Classic sea skim profiles. The threat isn't just their warheads, it's their timing. Low flyers arriving while everyone's eyes are pulled upward. This is the part that kills ships. Aegis shifts priorities, and the missile defense turns into a layered sequence. Long-range intercepts, then medium, then point defense. The SM-6 family is known publicly as a multi-mission weapon, built to engage aircraft and cruise missiles, and in some cases contribute to terminal defense. Tonight, it becomes a moving wall. At 02-1405, 2 more interceptors rise. The sound reaches you late. First, you see the light, then you hear the distant crack like thunder underwater. One cruise missile breaks apart mid-air, fragments pinwheeling, falling into the sea like burning confetti. Splash 3. Splash 4. The count is running, and the count matters because saturation is a math equation with blood in the margins. Now you're in that CIC, Combat Information Center, watching operators work in red light, faces flat, voices clipped. One sailor reads off track numbers like a metronome. Another keeps a running inventory of available shots. Another watches the EW picture, searching for decoys and deception. They are not dramatic, they are precise. A chess match where every piece moves at Mach numbers. At 02-1510, the cruise missile wave splits. 2 approach axes, one from the northwest, one from the north. It's a calculated attempt to stretch arcs, force split fires, and create leakage. But the strike group isn't reacting ship by ship. It's reacting as a system. Fighters, FA-18EF Super Hornets, are pushed out on a forward cap line, not to chase everything, but to thin the wave early. The Hawkeye feeds them targets. The escorts feed them targeting quality tracks. This is cooperative engagement in spirit, even if you never hear the acronym. You're in that cockpit now. Night vision turning the ocean into a grainy sheet of gray. Your radar shows returns that look like needles, fast, low, and closing. You don't dogfight a missile. You take the shot window you're given. One missile off the rail. A brief flare, then a bright bloom on the horizon where something expensive and dangerous becomes spray. Heart pounding. This is real. At 02-1622, the first leaker appears. One cruise missile that survived the outer ring by seconds, skimming low enough that the intercept geometry gets ugly. The Lincoln's own defenses come alive. Short-range missiles and guns designed for the final moments. The Phalanx CIWS, an automated 20mm Gatling system publicly described as firing thousands of rounds per minute, spins up with a mechanical scream that sounds like metal tearing itself apart. The tracer stream is not a line, it's a curtain. It reaches out into the dark and stitches the air in front of the inbound like a sewing machine on overdrive. The missile disintegrates. A concussion hits the ship a second later, felt more than heard, because even a kill at the edge of the bubble is still close enough to make your stomach drop. Leaker destroyed. You exhale for the first time in a minute you didn't realize you were holding. But the wave isn't done. 02-17 to 02-24 becomes a brutal cycle. Detect, assign, engage, assess, re-engage. The escorts fire in disciplined pairs when needed, singles when probability allows. Fighters pick off what they can. Electronic warfare tries to complicate terminal guidance. Decoys bloom on the water like false stars. And through it all, the enemy keeps waiting for the moment you make a mistake, because this is their real hope, that your system gets tired, that a human blinks, that a crew member hesitates. Each incoming track is not just a symbol, it's a potential obituary. Each defender has someone waiting back home. Kids, spouses, parents, people who think the ocean keeps them safe. Less time than your lunch break, and an entire carrier strike group is gambling lives on reaction speed. At 02:25:40, the last ballistic track is resolved, destroyed high, far enough that debris never threatens the formation. At 02:27:05, the final cruise missile is intercepted at medium range. Clean kill, no leakers, no shockwave. Silence returns in fragments. The air picture clears. Operators don't celebrate, they verify, they recheck, they scan for follow-ons. Because quiet after an attack can be a setup for the second punch. Then the message arrives that changes the night from defense to consequence. Hostile act confirmed. Authorization pending. This is the transition most people don't understand. Missile defense is not the end. Missile defense is the beginning of the response ladder. And the response isn't rage. It's a calculated demonstration. The strike group commander and higher authority weigh escalation, proportionality, and the strategic goal. Deny repeat capability without igniting a regional wildfire. Then the decision lands. Counterstrike is approved, not against a country, but against the machinery that made the attack possible. Coastal launch infrastructure, command and control nodes, and radar support sites used for targeting. The objective is future denial. A surgical strike, in the truest sense, cut the tendons, not the entire body. At 02:33, the escorts reposition to open safe launch baskets. In the dark water beyond the formation, a submarine, unseen and unannounced, moves into its own firing geometry. And then the night lights up again, but this time it's outbound. Cruise missiles leave their cells and tubes with controlled violence. Brief plumes, then nothing as they drop low and run. This is long-range naval strike doctrine in its most clinical form. Tomahawk is publicly described by its manufacturer as a modernized cruise missile family with upgraded navigation and communication in Block V variants, designed for long-range precision strike. You're back on the Lincoln's flight deck now. Red lights, hand signals, catapult crews moving fast but never sloppy. The first strike package launches. Fighters carrying precision ordnance, supported by electronic attack aircraft farther back in the choreography. A carrier's real weapon isn't steel, it's tempo. One jet, then another, then 4, then 8. The ocean becomes a runway. Could you be the one on the catwalk watching them go, knowing you might see empty deck spots come sunrise? At 02:49, impact confirmations start filtering in. A coastal radar site goes dark. A launch support depot erupts in secondary explosions. Fuel and stored munitions cooking off, visible from miles away. A command relay station stops transmitting mid-burst, the kind of abrupt silence that tells you hardware didn't fail. This isn't cinematic carpet bombing. It's precision, calculated, a message written in destroyed capability. And the most important target isn't a building, it's confidence. By Aero 258, the strike wave is complete. Aircraft return in sequence, traps thumping the deck with that heavy final sound. The ship continues moving, because carriers never stop moving. Not when they're threatened, not when they're triumphant, not when they're tired. Now the tally? Because numbers expose the truth. Final tally. 16 missiles launched, 16 engaged, 15 destroyed. 1 impacted the sea after guidance failure. 0 damage to the carrier. 0 fatalities. Minor topside shrapnel damage to an escort's external fittings. Repairable within hours. On the other side, 7 key nodes hit. 2 radar sites, 3 launch support facilities, and 2 command and control relays. Enough to disrupt follow-on attacks for weeks, not because the enemy is defeated, but because their timeline is shattered. Total duration from first lock indication to final damage assessment. 37 minutes. Less time than it takes you to commute. That's the lesson. Modern naval warfare isn't about who has the loudest missile. It's about who can compress the decision cycle, detect, decide, engage, faster than the opponent can manufacture surprise. Iran tried to force hesitation through political pressure and saturation logic. The strike group answered with integration and response speed. Sensors fused into one picture, shooters layered into one shield, and retaliation shaped into one clear strategic sentence. So here's the question. What surprised you most? The speed of the defense, the discipline under saturation, or the precision of the response? Drop your thoughts below. For more military analysis, smash that subscribe button.